Alright, hello. This video is to review for the MCA test, and we're going to go over parabola graphs. So basically, parabola happens when your equation is x squared. So kind of like the most basic one is like y equals x squared, and then graphically, the shape that makes is just like this U shape called a parabola. Alright, so the first thing is just to review some like vocab. So there's kind of, I guess I have two graphs here because you can either have your parabola opening up like this. Okay, and that happens usually when the x squared part is positive, and then you can have it upside down. So if I draw one over here, upside down, and that'll happen anytime the equation is negative x squared. Okay, and so kind of the key words, or the key things you're going to hear a lot of are vertex, okay, which is just like an xy point. So both of these have a vertex. So this one here looks like x negative 4 and y 3. I'm just reading them off the grid here. This one would be x 2 and y 3. All right, and then some other vocab you see from time to time on these is the two sides of the graph are symmetric. They're equal to each other, even though mine aren't drawn super great. But this line up through the middle is called like an axis of symmetry. Okay, and then up and down like that line is just an x equals line. So this one is x equals, if you look where it hits on the x-axis, it's just x equals 2. Okay, and so we have another axis of symmetry over here. It's just, again, the line down the middle of it, and it'll always be x equals something. So on this one, it'll be x equals negative 4. All right, and those things are called axis of symmetry. Okay, one other thing I want to point out here is like the vertex point is oftentimes like an important point. Like if it asks how high an object flies in the air or something, its max height is going to be this like vertex point. But if it ever asks you about the solutions are the x-intercepts. So the solutions are also sometimes called zeros of the function. Those are the points where it crosses on the x-axis. So our solutions here, usually an x squared has two solutions. In this case, it would be like negative 2.5 and about negative 6. I'm just kind of estimating off the graph there. But those would be the solutions to whatever that quadratic equation is. Okay, and then the one on the left actually has imaginary solutions because it doesn't cross the x-axis. So if you're ever solving or finding zeros or the 0 points, that's going to be your x-intercept. So these things, solution zeros, are also the same thing as the x-intercepts. Okay, so let's get to some sample questions. I encourage you to pause the video and try them on your own before continuing. This one, honestly, I think is pretty easy as long as you know how to use your graphics calculator. All right, so I would get that out and try it. Again, if you don't have a graphics calculator, you can use the one built into Rapid Identity. So pause the video, give this a shot. Okay, so to find my vertex and axis of symmetry, I'm just going to type it into y equals. So you got to hit this y equals key in the upper left of your calculator. And then it's just 2x squared plus 4x minus 5. So 2, the x key is right here. To square it, you hit this little hat. Then you got to hit the over arrow. And then let's see, plus 4x plus 4x minus 5. Hit graph. And then you can see here's the vertex point. And so there's a special way to find it, but honestly, on a multiple choice, you just got to get in the ballpark. So I'm just going to kind of scroll down here. And by the looks of it, it looks like my vertex is about negative 1, negative 7. All right. And again, if you had to get it exact, there's a way, but on multiple choice, that should be close enough. So our vertex is at negative 1, negative 7. So if we plot that on here, it'd be down here. And then our graph, I think, look like this. And so our axis of symmetry, if it asks about that, that's just this equation right here. Or that line, I guess. And that has an equation of x equals negative 1. So that would be our axis of symmetry, is that thing. Okay. Vertex of the parabola. Again, pause the video and give this one a shot. Okay, so there's a couple ways to do this. One is there's two different types of x squared equations. This one's called standard form, and I just graphed up my calculator. For this one's called vertex form, and it gets its name because you can see the vertex right here. Okay, and the only tricky part is the vertex, the x part of the vertex is actually positive 2 instead of negative 2. Okay, and so in order to remember that, two things. One, I would honestly just put it in my calculator. Like, just put it in there and look at it. That's going to be the easiest. Otherwise, you can do transformations, which if you remember that from earlier, the number inside here goes left or right, but opposite of what we think. So this parabola would actually be moved right 2. It starts at 0, 0, but it would be moved right 2, and then the plus 3 in the back makes us go up 3. So right 2, up 3, and then it's a positive x squared, so it looks like this. So honestly, that's what I would do, is do transformations, right 2, up 3. And that gives us this for our vertex, x2, y3. But again, if you don't remember how to do this, just type this in the calculator. Right? Just go into y equals and type it in and then find it that way. All right, so here's what it looks like typed in my calculator. And then hit the graph key, and then just hit trace. And I can go over and I can see my vertex point. I'm going to hit over arrow. It's going to be at x2 and y3. All right, and then boom, you got it. And when you're typing it in, if you need these parenthesis keys, they're right there and there on the calculator. Okay. Okay, yeah, so this one, again, you could graph on the calculator, or you just got to know, like, the transformation stuff. What does this plus 3 do? Right, we started with 5x squared, but then what if you slap a plus 3 on the end of it? So pause the video, give this a shot. Okay, so I'm going to draw the original one here in green, and this is, all we have here is a times 5, so this is just a stretch. So the original one, 5x squared, is just pulled up really tight like that. The times 5 makes it go up faster than it used to. And then the new one, I'll draw here in purple, this one is the same thing with the times 5, but then it's got a plus 3, and that just makes it go up 3. So it's going to be the same kind of tight shape, it just moved up 3. So the transformation here is just 3 units up. Okay, y-intercept. Okay, so this is just interpreting the graph. So see if you remember what a y-intercept is. Pause the video, give it a shot. Okay, so the only tricky part here is normally the points we want are the x-intercepts, because those are our solutions. So this particular graph would have solutions, would be x negative 1 and x3, but that's not what it's asking. It's not asking for the solutions, or remember the solutions are the same thing as the x-intercepts. It's asking about the y-intercept. So the y-intercept I'm going to highlight in red here is just where it crosses on the y-axis, and that's just the point x0, y negative 3. Okay, and y-intercept will always look like that, right? Like the y-intercept always will have an x-coordinate that's equal to 0. Right, you need point on that y-axis, the x is always 0. Okay, next up is another parabola graph. It says upward at 65 feet per second from a platform of 75 feet high. So that the 75 is right here. That's kind of the y-intercept, our starting point. And this shows the time and the height over time. And it's really asking when will it take to get to a height of 35 feet. And so basically here, it's just interpreting the graph. So the height of 35 would be like right about here. So here'd be 30, here'd be 35. So we just draw it across and say, like, what time is that? So it'd be right about here. So that's, I'm going to guess, is right around 5 seconds. So, oh man, that's tough. Between 5 and 4.5. That's pretty tough. So maybe I'll try to draw a straight line here. Not that you'll have a ruler on this test or anything, but maybe that's the best way to do this, just to make 100% sure we can do this. So 35 would be right there. Whoops. Yeah, so I'm having trouble drawing this out, but I think my best guess is if I try to make this right on 35, this straight line, if I can drag it a little bit, I think it's going to be closer to 4.5 is my best guess. Well, especially because I guess at 5 seconds, we're way down here. Right, at 5 seconds, we're at 0. So I guess thinking it through a little bit more, 5 seconds doesn't make sense. So I'm going to say 4.5 seconds is probably the best answer there. Okay, next one, again, is interpreting a graph. And it's a little weird because we're using f of x. So they're saying it's like the y here is equivalent to like f of x. So it really wants us to know, you know, so it's asking us what value of x, so somewhere along the x-axis will y equal 4, right? Because basically they're saying like y is the same thing as f of x. So this is saying like what value of x will make y 4. So for y 4 would be right here. And again, I'm just going to extend it out in either direction. So it looks like we can get a y of 4 when x is either -1 or 5. And looking through our answer choices, only one of those is an option. So if we have x of 5, that would make y be 4. Right? And again, just if you're worried about this f of x thing, just think of it as y, right? Because it's saying that f of x is the same thing as y.